Selena McKenzie.
This is the Lifestyle Show on TRE.
Disaster, darling.
Now, a recent survey by Rescue Remedy has discovered that 86% of adults consider themselves to be a worrier. So here to help us with that, if you're one of the 86%, the founder and director of the Stress Management Society, please welcome to the show, Neil Shah. Thanks very much for joining us, Neil.
You're most welcome. How are you today?
I have been stressed this morning. I'll be totally honest with you. We had a few problems, but I'm going to try and learn how to cope with that in a minute, hopefully. Britain is currently suffering apparently from a stress epidemic. Is that a sign of the times?
Yeah, very much so. The pace of life has quickened, the pressure and demands that we're being subjected to has massively increased, and sadly more and more people are getting to the point of overwhelm where they're just not coping with the pressures we're being subjected to. A part of which is the pace of life is very much due to the amount of information we're being exposed to, the technology that's increasing the rate and flow of information, and as I said, most people sadly don't have good coping strategies.
And it does say here, actually, just thinking about what I said as far as work's concerned, it said a staggering 1 in 4 employees who are said to suffer from stress, the number one reason is in the workplace.
Yeah, and I think work is because we're spending more and more time at work. And the other thing is many of us don't switch off when we leave the office because now we have technology in our pocket, which means from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, you've got emails pinging in and texts and social media updates. And a lot of that work-related content is being put in front of us even when we're not in the workplace. So, you know, the lines between home and work are very much blurred. And many people are working much longer hours than we're accustomed to because the day doesn't finish when you leave the office.
Yeah, you're right. And obviously with texts and emails and things like that, people expect answers straight away, don't they?
Exactly. Even if someone has sent you an email at 10 o'clock at night and not expect a response, many of us feel the pressure to respond because you received it at that time. And even if you don't respond, if you've seen a work-related email or text at 10 o'clock at night, you might then be lying in bed thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of demands on our time, and not just in the workplace. I mean, it must be very difficult for like new mothers, new parents and people with young children having to sort of cope with the life-work balance. Does your plan help them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that regardless of what your situation is, whether it's kind of dealing with workload and kind of, you know, family commitments or any other sort of challenges or pressures in your life, the key step is understanding that all of the pressures and demands that you experience in your life end up on the same plate. So to give you a better understanding, we use a metaphor of a bridge. So,
oh, hello? You still there? Hello? Hello. We seem to have lost Neil. That's a shame. I hope he's not stressed. What we'll do is we'll play some music and we'll try very hard to get him back. We will play some more Call in the Gang later, but we do have Neil Shah back, thankfully. Hi, Neil. You're not too stressed, are you?
No, just a little bit.
You were telling us about your answer, because apparently you've got a 10-step plan.
Yeah, so it's based on my book, which is called The 10-Step Stress Solution. And the first step is really recognition. And as I was saying before the phone decided to get cut off, is that if we imagine stress from an engineering perspective, if we think of a bridge that, let's say we drive a whole load of red double-decker buses onto, and then we put a cruise ship, and we put some trains, and we put some Boeing 747s, and we continue piling on the weight, some cranes and some heavy plant machinery. If we put enough weight, enough load, enough demand onto any bridge, whether it's the Golden Gate Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, the Severn Bridge, the London Bridge, every bridge has an ultimate capacity beyond which it will collapse. Before it collapses, we all know that it's not coping particularly well because it will start to bow, buckle, groan and creak. When it's groaning, bowing and buckling, you've got one of two choices to prevent it from collapsing. Either we remove some of the pressure, remove some of the load, or we reinforce it with concrete blocks, iron girders to better equip it to bear that load. Now, interestingly, people are exactly the same. Now, we have a huge amount of pressure and demand in our life. You know, the stuff we've got to do at work, the deadlines, the emails, things at home, you know, sorting out the kids, family pressures, financial issues. And all of that pressure, all the demand that we're subjected to ends up on the same plate, on the same bridge. And every human being, just like every bridge, has an ultimate capacity to bear load, beyond which they too will also collapse. That collapse could manifest itself in many different ways. It could be having a breakdown or having a serious health condition like a heart attack or cancer or diabetes or stroke. which have all been linked back to stress. Or sadly, what we're seeing more and more is people getting to the point where they seek the ultimate permanent solution to a temporary problem. And sadly, in modern life, we are getting an increase in people taking their own lives. But before we get to the point of collapse, we all know that the bridge is not coping too well, because there'll be bowing, buckling, groaning and creaking. And that's where people get angry, frustrated, where they can't think clearly. It could be weight loss because they're not eating, weight gain because they're eating too much, turn into things like alcohol, nicotine, refined sugar products, caffeine, not being able to sleep at night, losing pride in your appearance, ending up working longer hours, not being able to focus. The list goes on. And the key thing here is that if we pick it up early enough, if we pick it up at the bowing and buckling stage, we can take action to do something about it, either by removing some of that pressure or that load, by delegating or reprioritizing deadlines or asking for support to take some of that pressure off, or to reinforce the bridge and looking at how we can develop better coping mechanisms, strategies to best equip us to cope with the pressures that we're being subjected to. And that, for me, is the key. That if we could take one of those two approaches, we can prevent our bridge from ever getting anywhere near the point of collapse.
But surely sometimes in life there is very little you can do about these things. You have to sort of try and manage with everything that you do.
Absolutely, and that is an important thing for us to take away, is that we may not have choice about the demands that's being subjected to our bridges. We do have absolute, complete choice about how we go about dealing with that, how we react and respond to that, and also the steps we're taking to continue to strengthen and reinforce the bridge. That is the key, because I totally appreciate that in modern life, most of us don't have choice about what's put on our bridge, but we do have the choice about how much time we spend and invest in developing a stronger bridge so we're best equipped to cope with that demand.
And I'm guessing the reason you started all this is because you're living proof. I mean, I was reading, for example, in the last few days, you've walked on fire, climbed Mount Everest and run the London Marathon. Wow.
Yeah, and absolutely. And last year I also managed to do an Ironman triathlon as well. And ultimately, you if you're going to put yourself under that level of stress and pressure, you need to be sure that you've got good coping mechanisms to be able to cope with that. And to be fair, like, I started the Stress Management Society because I had a first-hand experience. I've been there and had a burnout due to stress, and found there wasn't actually a huge amount out there to support people. So we founded an organisation to better support people that are going through those kind of challenges. So I've been there myself. I know what it feels like when your bridge collapses, and what you have to do to then go about rebuilding it.
You're also a qualified practitioner of hypnotherapy. Does that help with stress?
It's one of many things I've trained in over the years, and I think it's very important that we have a broad range of approaches and strategies to be able to support ourselves to be able to cope with the demands and challenges of modern life. It's not just do this one thing or take this one pill and it will resolve all your problems. I think it's very much taking a holistic approach. Yes, we do need to work with the mind, and that's where things like hypnotherapy and NLP are areas I've trained in, which are good for looking at how you are developing your mind and increasing mental resilience. But then it's important to exercise as well. And, for me, physical activities are very much an important part of my well-being. So that doesn't necessarily mean going out and doing triathlons. It could be just taking your dog around the block a couple of times every day. It could be, stretching, breathing, getting off the bus or the train 1 or 2 stops earlier. It's about nutrition. Research has suggested up to 40% of the food that we consume, 40% of what we consume, 40% of the stress we experience we have consumed with poor diet. If you eat a diet rich with processed foods and sugar and artificial sort of preservatives and stimulants, that in itself is going to start having an impact on how your body's function, which will contribute to your stress. Dehydration, most people aren't drinking enough water, so that in itself causes stress to the system. Sleep is both a symptom and a cause of a bowing and buckling bridge. So sleep is a symptom and a cause of stress. So if you haven't slept well, you're going to find you're going to struggle with challenges that you face and get more stressed. But equally, if you're stressed, you're going to find it hard to sleep at night. So, getting a good night's sleep, having a good wind-down routine like we would for young children, preparing ourselves for bed at the end of every day, will allow us to get a better night's sleep and wake up in the morning with a stronger bridge. So there are a variety of different things that we should be considering as part of our journey of increasing our resilience and developing a stronger bridge.
And would you suggest, in order to do that, in order, for example, to get a better night's sleep, would you suggest that people make sure that they turn their phones off, for example, they turn their computers off, they don't answer any emails, say after 8 o'clock at night, for example?
Well, let me ask you a question to respond to that. Do you have children?
No.
Okay. Have you ever been a child? I'm assuming once upon a time you were.
Yes.
How do you prepare a small child for bed? What would you do to prepare a child for bed?
You'd read them a story, wouldn't you?
You'd read them a story, maybe a bath, a lullaby, a warm drink.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you'd do to prepare that child for bed, maybe a cuddle or a massage or something like that. And there's certain things you'd avoid doing with a child at bedtime. You probably wouldn't play games, give them sugar, get them excited, watch television, because all of that stuff is going to stimulate them and prevent them from sleeping at night. Now, the thing is, a lot of people aren't aware of this. It's a very unknown fact. But adults are from the same species as children. And with that in mind, we should be adopting similar strategies and approaches with ourselves as we do with our children. So what I mean by that, there are certain things that you would do to relax a child. So you could do the same thing. You could read a magazine or some light reading. Maybe not something too heavy like a work report or one of those page-turning novels that you find hard to put down. Turn the television off. Turn the laptop and the computer and the tablet and the mobile phone off. Maybe listen to music. Have a bath if you enjoy that kind of thing. Go for a walk around the block. Maybe not some heavy exercise. Raising the heart rate and increasing the body temperature is counterproductive at bedtime because that is going to prevent you from going to sleep. There is one caveat to that, I should add. There is one form of exercise which does raise the heart rate and increase the body temperature, which is particularly useful at bedtime, even though it contravenes the normal laws around kind of raising the heart rate and increasing the body temperature, because there are certain other hormones that are produced, and that's being intimate with your partner. So that's a great form of exercise you can do at bedtime.
I'm sure a lot of men listening will be happy about that.
Yeah. Often when I tell that to men, they ask me to kind of sign a piece of paper so they can show their wife that, a stress expert said that was okay. Said like there are key things that we should be avoiding, and there are key things that we should be doing. We could also utilize some formal relaxation activities like meditation or yoga or things that we know will help us to wind down, mindfulness techniques. So there's a variety of different ways that we can help ourselves, because a lot of people experience what I would describe as the Roadrunner effect. So you're familiar with Roadrunner, the cartoon, runs around the desert at 1,000 miles an hour. I mean, when he stops running to Wile E. Coyote's trap, he's running at such a breakneck speed that his feet stop, but his body kind of reverberates backwards and forwards like an arrow quivering when it hits the target. And many of us have that experience because we rush around all day long. We're rushing to work, and when we get home, we've got kids to sort out, got meals to prepare, maybe social activities or exercise or whatever, and then we plonk ourselves in front of the television. Even though the body's slowing down, the mind is still racing because we're looking at the news, or we're watching a program on TV, or watching a film, or we've got the iPad out, or we're on the phone, and our brains are still being heavily stimulated. We then get into bed, even though the body has come to the stop, the brain is experiencing what I would describe as Roadrunner effect. And have you ever had that experience? You get into bed and your head hits the pillow, but you're still churning over 1,000 different thoughts?
Every night.
Absolutely. So you're a perfect example of someone who experiences the Roadrunner effect. How could Roadrunner prevent that from happening? What could Roadrunner do when he's running up to Wile E. Coyote's trap to prevent that kind of quiver effect happening when he stops? It would be to slow down. Rather than running up to the trap at full pelt, actually take the time to slow down. Hence, going back to some of the suggestions I've said, rather than rushing up to bedtime at full pelt, when you know bedtime is approaching, maybe the last 90 minutes, 2 hours before sleep, start the wind-down process. Start doing things that you know are going to help you to relax and unwind. So when you do get into bed and your head hits the pillow, not only is your body relaxed, but your mind is not still racing.
Sounds good to me. Well, presumably this is all in the book, and the book is called The 10-Step Stress Solution, Live More, Relax More and Re-Energize. It's by Neil Shah, who we're speaking to now, and it came out at the beginning of this month, Neil?
That's correct.
Brilliant. And what's your website if people want to find out more?
So lots and lots of information on our website, which is www.stress.org.uk.
Lovely. I'm going to practice this evening and see if I can have a good night's sleep. Thank you very much for your time.
Excellent. Have a lovely day.
You too. Bye-bye.